In this lesson, we're going to create a responsive design web page using the Bootstrap framework. In order to use the Bootstrap framework, the first thing we want to do is set a site up that will keep our files centrally located. So we can do that from the welcome screen here with Site Setup, or if we don't have that window available to us, we can go to Site and New Site. Both will take you to the same place. What we want to do first is give our site a name. I'm just going to call this Bootstrap to keep it simple so we know where it is. Now I'm going to keep it out on the desktop here just for simplicity's sake. So I'm going to go to the desktop here and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'll call it Bootstrap. Okay, and I'll create that folder, and I want to choose that folder. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to click on the advanced options here. Okay, and when I look at the local info, I can make a default images folder, and I'm going to go ahead and pick that, and inside Bootstrap I'm going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call it images, and create and choose. That way Dreamweaver knows what to do when we give it an image. It's going to put it in our folder for us. Okay, so once I do that, I'm just going to click Save, and now I have my Bootstrap site set up. Okay, now down the road I can connect that to a remote server so I can transfer the files, but for the point of this, we don't really need to do that at this point. You'll notice on my desktop over here I do have a Bootstrap folder here, and if I look in my Bootstrap folder, you'll see I have a default images folder, and that's about all we have. So that's what Dreamweaver's looking at here. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and create a Bootstrap layout. So I can do that by doing this, or I can go up to File, New, create an HTML page, and make sure I choose the Bootstrap framework. But I'm just going to click here. It kind of takes me to this. So if you did go to HTML, you just want to make sure you click over here on the Bootstrap tab. Now we're going to create a new Bootstrap framework there, and we want to use a pre-built layout for something to work with here. So we're going to click Create here. And what's going to happen is Dreamweaver does a whole bunch of stuff in the background here. And actually, if we go out now and look in our Bootstrap folder, you can see that it's starting to put some CSS files in here. Okay, there's no images still, but there is some JavaScript stuff with our Bootstrap JavaScript file here. Okay, so I'm just going to close that back down just so you know what's going on here. Now, in here in the live view, when we look at a responsive design site, we can kind of take our little slider here and slide this around to show you what's going to happen while we're on the PC or on a desktop. Then when we get down to tablet size, you'll see the transition in the page as the boxes get smaller and stacked a little differently. Then we move down to a smaller tablet, and then we get down to a cell phone range just to see how those things change. Now that's a responsive design site. Okay. So in here, in the live view, a couple things we can do here. We can go ahead and double click in here and select this text and, you know, my Bootstrap page or something like that. And up here, you know, we can kind of double click up here and call this Bootstrap. Okay. So we can change some things on here, but really, let's take a look. These are all objects here that we can kind of get rid of on the page if we don't think we need them for part of our content. And you can actually go ahead and delete many of these things out. And you'll see now we have to delete the form out here, so I can go ahead and delete that out. Now I'm going to leave some stuff over here, which is fine, and we can come back to that later. But I want to kind of focus in this area here. You'll see there are three columns here that we're working with. Now in a Bootstrap layout, you're based upon 12. Okay. So when we click on this and we see column small 4, you're seeing that's going to be 4 columns at this point. It's basically, so 4 times 3 is 12. That's how we get our 12 column grid. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put pictures in here and we'll kind of see how this works. So I'm going to click over here inside here, and then I want to just go out to the code just to make sure that my cursor is right here between my closing div tag, or my closing bracket for my div tag, and in front of the C. So I'm going to go back to live at this point. Now that it's here, what I want to do is I can come over here, okay, to my insert panel, okay, and I'm going to insert on the Bootstrap components here. I want to make sure that I'm on Bootstrap components, okay, and I want to insert a responsive image. Okay, now it's going to ask me where I want to put that. I'm just going to nest it, so I'm going to nest it within the tags that are there inside the div tag, and you'll notice it puts it inside that element here and in front of the text, and that's exactly what we wanted. Now what I can do is I can actually choose the attributes that go with that, including the source, which is a big one here. So I want to go out to the source. Now you've noticed over on here on my desktop, I have some pictures of a car that I'm going to go ahead and place up here. So I'm going to click in here and I'm going to go out to my desktop, and you'll see I have car 1. I'll just go ahead and pick car 1 and say open. Now it says to make a relative path, your document should be saved first. So it's going to go ahead and save that inside my images folder, which is nice. Now, the alt tag, you should fill that out with something meaningful. For this, I'm just going to put car 1 in here. Okay? And you'll notice it's make image responsive. That's what we want. Okay? So, what I can do here now is kind of click out of that. Now, when I click back on here, you'll see I'm going to get the option here of duplicating a column or adding a new column. Okay, so I can duplicate this column and put it here, and then I can go up on the image here, click on the image, and get my menu again, and I can go ahead and choose one of those other images, like car 2 from my desktop, and open that and say OK. And so you kind of get the point here now. Okay. I'm going to click on one of these columns, and I'm going to hit delete out of here, and I'm going to click on another one, and I'm going to hit delete out of here. And then I'm going to come back to this column and click down here, right? And I can duplicate that column again. And I'm actually going to duplicate this column one more time. So now I have 4, and you can see what's happening here. It moves it down to the next line, but that's okay. I'm actually going to go in, and I'm going to change this in here. So I'm using my other 2 pictures here for my car. So I'm going to use car 3, open. And once again, that's going to put it in my images folder, and that's what I want. And over here, I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to come back over here. Okay, go to my desktop and choose car 4 and say open and OK. So now I have 4 files, but you can see this kind of doesn't really look right. So what we can do is we can resize these. Okay, when I click on this in here and I select this div tag here, you'll see the div tag is selected. I can slide from either side to resize it, but here's what happened. When I do it this side, I'm going to offset it, which means I'm going to pull it inside the container here a little bit, and that's really not what I want. I want to kind of make this smaller, okay? And then you'll see it's 3, okay? It moved it down to 3, so I'm going to click on this one. So now I'm down to 3 columns, and I'm down to 3 columns again, and 3 columns, and watch what's going to happen here when I move these all down to 3 columns, and now they all fit across. Okay, now that is in my full layout, my full desktop layout. As I drag this down, watch what's going to happen when I switch to here. I'm off again. Okay, so there's 2 options I can have. I can take these down to 2 columns if I want, or I can actually stretch this back out to say like 6 columns, and then I can stretch this back out to 6 columns. And this back out to 6 columns, and this one back out to 6 columns. Okay, so now when I come down to here, same thing happens. Okay, I can go ahead and bring this, resize this column out here, and resize this column out here. Okay, and resize this column here, and resize this one here. Okay, now I want to slide back in a little bit farther here and go to my something. So what I can do here, now I have all 4 of them in a very large print here, okay, which is fine. Or if I wanted to, I could put them in 2 columns apiece if I wanted to, but this is fine here for the mobile. Okay, so I'm going to stretch this back out here, right? And now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to save this page, file, and I'm going to save it. It's going to ask me what I want to save it. I'm going to call it bs.html, no pun intended there. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay? It says this page uses objects behavior requires supporting files. Following files have been copied to your local site. You must upload them to your server in order, right? So we're just going to say OK to that. Right? Now let's go take a look at the Bootstrap folder here that we have now. Okay? So we've got a bs.html, and look inside our images. Once again, we have all of those images in our local site. So what I can do now is go ahead and open that file to see what I'm looking at here. I'm going to minimize Dreamweaver, and I'm going to open my Bootstrap folder, and I'm going to go in here and go ahead and look at my Bootstrap page here. As I scroll in here, you'll see as I get smaller, it kind of meets the criteria that we established for those 4 different sizes. So I hope that helps you out with a little bit of lesson in setting up a Bootstrap page. Obviously, you can change any of those other elements in there, but this was just a quick way to go ahead and get started with a Bootstrap page.